Where is the market going in 2024? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of Note School TV, and well, this is one of our monthly favorites. This is the November monthly update, and guys, you are going to, well, we've got a lot of data to go through, and you are going to find it very helpful as we move from 2023 into 2024. Couple of things I want to ask of you before we get into the data. And number one, it is make sure and like this episode. Yep, just hit the like button, followed by the subscribe if you have not already subscribed to Note School TV. And number three, hit that bell notification. Boom! You don't want to miss a minute of any of our Note School TV episodes. And then also make sure and keep the comments coming, guys. We enjoy reading those. We glean a lot of information from those. So please keep those coming. We love to hear from you as well. And then finally, if you want to know more about what we do at Note School, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And we'd be happy to have a conversation with you about, well, how to attend one of our 2-hour master classes done by none other than Mr. Eddie Speed and our Chief Market Officer, Mr. Max Keller. We'll talk a little more about that at the end of the show. So let's get right into it. I want to introduce, well, our Chief Visionary Officer, our esteemed founder of Note School, all-around great guy, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So how was Thanksgiving, Eddie?
Thanksgiving was awesome.
Yeah.
We have 3 grown kids that are all 3 married, and 2 of them live out of state. So It's not quite like it was when they were all in high school, but we had a great time and enjoyed it. And, I think really just reflecting on really what to be thankful for. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, if you don't wake up every day looking for what you can be grateful for and be thankful for, you're going to look up and see what you're going to wake up thinking about what you don't have.
Eddie, with the way things are going, today, you have to find those little blessings every day and those little things to be thankful for, and not to get all mushy, but that's just the way you have to look at it, right? I mean, that's just, if you live with that attitude, you'll be okay.
Enough said about it, but we around here, we really believe that. We try to apply that. And we try to have a little consciousness that we're all doing. We start every executive meeting with what we're grateful for.
Yep, absolutely.
So, all right, we have a big story today. This is really about the real estate market overall, but obviously, housing is a big part of it, but it would include commercial as well. And so we got a lot of slides and data, and Joe, you've done a great job of assembling that. So let's get started here and look through some slides. So, Joe, the realtors say that housing's going to go up. House prices are going to go up 3 or 4%.
Well, that's what Mr. Lawrence Yoon from the chief economist for NAR, National Association of Realtors, say. Eddie went through a lot of data. Some are predicting it to go down 1.6%, but percent in 2024, but so it's we're somewhere in the zone there. And then as far as inventory, it's going to remain below what we would deem a balanced market, and that's from Mr. Zal from Redfin.
Yeah, so I'll tell you something. We thought this was such a good report. This is in your downloads. So if you guys want some very specific information, then this is in your downloads, and this is Fannie Mae's latest report. It is the November report. I mean, this is fresh off the press, and it has a lot of things. I can kind of summarize what they're really saying, but they are calling for a light recession. There's a lot of data about the housing market, the value in housing. There's a number of charts and data. It was a little too much. It would have been like the whole show if we'd have just done this report.
Right.
It's that good.
Yeah.
But we have read it extensively. And I have a friend that runs a hedge fund. They have a lot of billions, many, many billions, dozens of billions of dollars under management. And it's the kind of thing that they pay attention to. And
Exactly.
I had a recent conversation with this guy about that. So I think it's solid information. I believe that Fannie probably isn't not trying to put quite the spin on it that NAR is.
Yeah.
And let me just say this. Call it housing likely is going to be flat.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Sales are going to be flat.
Yep.
Loan production is pretty close to flat.
Yeah.
Right. Now, by the way, there were 1/3 of the loans originated this year that there were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
1/3 here compared to 3/3 here.
Well, Eddie, to put it into perspective, it's like from $4.5 billion down to trillion. Yes, in dollar volume. Yes, trillion down to 1.5.
Yeah, that's about 1/3.
That's 1/3. Any way you slice it.
So anyway, it's a big deal. Joe, you know, we recently at our Note Expo had one of the panels that was the most talked about in our Note School Member Appreciation Day was what we call the Lady Boss panel.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that they talked about, and it was moderated by my wife, Martha. Yep. And we had some very successful ladies that are in the business. And one of the things that we talked about on there is like, really, honestly, women make more than 50% of the investment decisions. Yep. People don't realize that, but there's a lot of women that make their own investment decisions. And more, the society trend is that ladies have a significant influence in a man and wife, you know, couple. Mm-hmm. Like they make the decisions too, right? Exactly. Or they end up making a lot of them. So this is really a new trend. We're certainly seeing this true in the note industry. Literally, I'm not kidding. In the note industry, 50% of our most successful students are ladies.
Absolutely.
There's no gender, and there's no race in the note business.
That's right.
That's a cool thing. I really think that's
a great way to put it. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Joe, obviously this is the case. Female buyers, 55% are female buyers. They're 34 years old or older. And they're, you know, that's on the gender side. And obviously on the race side, we're seeing more and more people of various ethnic backgrounds, you know, that are becoming active and becoming, you know, taking control of their investments and taking control of their future. So anyway, a lot to be said about that. Joe, the affordability thing is really like, this is something that we just have to be cognizant of.
We do. You see what the average home buyer has to earn there at $114,000. And that's quite a bit. I mean, when you look at that, that's almost.
They have to earn 10% more. They have to earn 10% more than they did just a year ago.
Yep.
And if you look back in time and you say, then they have to earn $40,000, the income needed for a medium priced home. So that's really, you know, the affordability factor is really what's causing the shortage of inventory not to go wild in pricing. It's that fighting counterbalance between there's low inventory, but people can't afford it.
Yep.
Right. Buyer sentiment is actually really low, by the way.
It is very low. People are a little depressed.
A lot to be said about banking. We did not focus on banking so much this month. And, but the banking story is unfolding the way we've been discussing, that banks are cleaning up their balance sheet. They're selling discounted notes.
Yep.
They're now moving non-performing notes at a rate into the secondary market. These long defaulted non-performing notes are getting moved into the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Rates are about just a tick under 8%. And when you read like the Fannie Mae report, you're going to see that we're going to see pretty much flat rates probably next year, and then the year after, then we're going to see some decline in rates.
And isn't it interesting that the ARM there is the highest rate on the chart there?
ARMs were a big deal for a long time.
Yeah,
like they're nothing now.
Yeah, people are a little skeptical about
now rate buy downs are far more.
Oh, absolutely.
People are buying down the rates.
Right.
By the way, these are the annual percentage rates. These are not the rates that are on the notes. So sometimes when you see rates quoted, you got to remember that those are not the actual effective rate that you pay. These are the actual effective rates. So we use APR as a guide for us, not the interest rate put on the note itself. Okay. Points and fees increase the rate you're paying, right, Joe?
Exactly. And that's in the Reg Z part of that at the bottom in the fine print, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about rate predictions, Joe.
Yeah, so looks like, we're going to go into 2024, the first quarter, and you can see the rates there from the mortgage bankers to Fannie and then National Association of Realtors. Fannie is, of course, on the higher side of that. And then, as we move into Q2, 3, and 4, again, Fannie is not quite as forgiving, or the rates are, they're a little bit higher than the rest. So we'll have to see. I think mortgage bankers want to keep them basically in the mid sixes. And of course, NAR does as well.
Well, let me say this about the mortgage bankers. First of all, they got to make a profit.
Absolutely.
And they're not making a profit today. They're losing over $1,000 per loan they originate.
Absolutely.
And so maybe they need to look at their rates and say, what does it take for us to actually break even and make a profit? Because that'd be a good thing to stay in business.
Well, Eddie, it would be, right? I mean, that's just simple economics that, this is what we need to do. And a couple of bips there would make a big difference.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right. So let's mortgage rates headed lower. Joe, mortgage rates will likely cool down in the spring. Okay, well, you just saw what everybody says about it.
Right.
Okay, so you're seeing this scenario here and this scenario here, and that's what they're referring to.
Exactly.
Fannie says not much.
Not much, yeah.
So the effect of rates. One thing I thought it was in this report is mortgage rates could allow some buyers who've been priced out of the market to return to house hunting.
Yeah.
And Joe, I would tell you that basically, I think when you read through like the Fannie Mae report, we can't force this market.
No, we can't.
Right? I mean, if you have a big, you already have the non-affordability factor. Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Well, I guess you better go find a job that pays you a lot more money than you're making now, because otherwise you can't afford it.
At least 10% more than you're making now.
This is why seller financing has become such a big deal, because you can make way more profit seller financing your rental than renting it.
Absolutely.
Right? Because there's this huge disparity between rents and mortgage payments.
Yes.
Right? All right. The other factor, the elephant in the middle of the room, Joe, is this little item right here, which is the mortgage credit availability. This is the underwriting standard that mortgage banking had. And if you look back, basically right about the beginning of the virus, we were at this.
Yep.
Right? So we were here, and then the virus happens and it dropped like a rock. And Joe, it's rocked around back and forth, but it's kind of, You have heard me refer to, guys, many times along the way, if you're a listener, that second shelf, that second drop.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it happen in real estate markets over and over and over. I believe that's what we're going to see in the commercial market and in multifamily.
Most definitely.
And you saw this in mortgage bankers underwriting. So people think it's okay because you kind of went a little period in here, Joe, that looked like, okay, well, it's bad, but it's going to fix itself.
It's leveled off for a bit.
And then all of a sudden it hits another drop, right? And by the way, we're kind of leveling off again.
Yeah.
Right? Does it get worse? I don't know that it gets worse because delinquency is not bad. But
that's right.
But there's 8 times the amount of loans being bought back now. Like where people originate a loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, there's 8 times the amount of loans that the agency is kicking back to the people that originated it than there was.
That's right.
8 times. So that means you originate a loan for $400,000 and you think you're going to sell it through the window at Fannie Mae. And all of a sudden Fannie Mae starts looking at all your appraisals and your verification documents and your forms and your loan application materials and stuff. And they're like, kick it back.
Yep. You missed something.
Now all of a sudden you buy a loan back for $400,000. Now you got to go sell it in the secondary market. It's called a scratch and dent loan. That's called lose money.
That's right.
8 times the amount of that there was. So I don't see underwriting softening much.
Well, and Eddie, again, that just plays into what we do at note school in the note industry. Is that just plays in because of the availability of credit, the ability for somebody that's self-employed, an entrepreneur, whatever, to go out and qualify just keeps getting harder because, well, lenders don't like a lot of times people who have fluctuating income and things like that.
By the way, those of you that have not heard of a scratch and dent loan, that's a loan that was originated to be sold to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or was sold to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, but it gets kicked back. The agency kicks it back and makes the originator buy that loan back. They buy that loan back, and then they put it in the secondary market and they sell that loan at a discount. That's called the discount note buying business.
That's right.
Now, you just heard me quote a stat that occurrence was 8 times greater than it was. That was a forecast that was a headline that we covered a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
That means there's 8 times the amount of scratch and dent loans available, Joe, that there were.
That's right. And they're good loans. They're just, they didn't check.
That doesn't mean they're terrible. It could be kind of an appraisal issue or various things like that. So, all right. So lenders' losses in production nearly doubles in third quarter. Joe, the average loss on each loan originated is $1,015. Joe, if that's not worth noting, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
That you're saying that they're losing money? Yeah. Yeah, over $1,000 a loan.
Yeah.
They can't keep doing that.
No, cannot.
That means they have to originate loans at higher rates.
That's right.
Because the rates that they're originating when they go to the bond market, they can't sell it. They can't sell it for what the bond market says they'll pay for it.
Right.
And they're predicting lower industry volumes in the next 2 quarters. So they're not the runway ahead in the next 6 months does not look great.
Well, as the old joke said, they're going to make it up in volume, but they're not going to make it up in volume, are they?
No, and we've got lots of friends in the mortgage banking business. They're just having to shift gears. They're just having to go figure out other things. We've said this a zillion times. Nothing works the same for 20 straight years.
It doesn't. Usually
nothing works the same for 5 straight years. Now, that's not true in some real estate classes.
Right.
But, every dog's got his day. Everything is timing, right?
It is.
So let's talk about timing. Let's talk about the thing. This is the most controversial thing that we do in our Note School TV ever. And that is because we are pushing back on the market of what people have done. And they're thinking just because they've done that's going to always continue. Multifamily was a hockey stick up, okay, in value. Rates were low. Properties were going up in value. It was easy to raise money for syndicators. And so then all of a sudden, the people that had been doing it thought, well, this is just, I can do this forever.
Sure.
And the answer is, particularly pointed at multifamily, is, Joe, we're looking at rates.
Mm-hmm.
So rate rises are not really a thing.
And by the way, Eddie, that was a year ago, right? I mean, that was a headline we pulled from the episode, well, middle of November of last year, and there
November
it is.
16th of 22.
Yep.
Okay. But you see this trend.
Yep.
Right. And we're just trying to call the ball to point it out so you guys can see it. So most people said, oh, no, this can't be true. No way this can happen. You know, and so we're like, and also we call the ball on something else that I'm going to talk about here in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you go, Joe. The same thing. We were seeing that people weren't buying investment property.
That's right.
Well, we started calling this ball a year ago. Well, now all of a sudden we've seen all these people go, well, people aren't buying BRRRRs the way they were. Buy, rehab, rent, refi, right? They're not doing that.
And repeat.
Loan production down on the commercial side about 70%, right? Well, it's not a shocker. Their calculator won't work.
That's it.
Right? Now, how do you call the ball?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a crystal ball, or you can read Facebook, or you can actually have data.
That's it.
We like the third one. Data seems to be the best indicator. So these are properties under construction, correct?
That is correct. Housing starts. You've got the first, the red line there is it increased by 1.372 million in October on the single family, one unit structure, single family. But look at the blue, which, and then look at the commentary at the bottom. Multifamily starts were down 30% year over year in October.
Yeah, let me clarify this. This isn't all the units under construction.
No,
these are units under starts.
Right.
Now there's been a caution flag with home builders, because of home builders, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, around September, they said there was an 8-month supply, 7.8 month supply. Right. So there was a big caution flag here, and you saw that. Like you can look at and see there's been a little stutter step there, but the inventory of houses seems to be low enough. Joe, I'm going to say to you that the problem with these starts is lending.
Yes.
It's not that the promoters don't want to go start the next project. Right. It's that their lenders are not giving them the money. The lenders are cutting off the money supply.
And Eddie, just kind of a quick aside there, and understand that, well, a lot of people may say, well, these guys are saying there's 8 months supply, but it doesn't show up in MLS, and it won't, because the builders are selling their own.
They're not in MLS.
They're not in the MLS, so they're not going to show up there. The builders are selling through their own sales, their open house, their model home. That's the way they're selling. Yep.
All right. So blue are builder starts, and you see the big decline.
Yep.
In multifamily. Blue is what we're really paying attention to here. We're not ignoring residential single family, but we're saying that there's a pattern we're trying to point to here. Okay. Now, Joe, this is from the St. Louis Fed, and this isn't brand new. This was October, okay, that this came out. But Joe, I want to tell you something, man. This right here is where the rubber meets the road. And you go over here and look. And basically, specifically, there's 986,000 multifamily units under construction right now.
It's pretty close to 1 million.
Let's call that 1 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Under construction right now.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, a year ago, there's a wave of going to these real estate masterminds, right? And I go to a number of them, and I went to a number of real estate masterminds late November, early December of last year. And I can remember very specifically sitting in a room with a room full of guys that had done multifamily for the last several years. And Joe, they made more money than they could ever dream of.
Absolutely.
The market was kind to them. They could not make a mistake. They would buy at this, and the market went to this.
Yeah.
And they generally, in their mind, I think they generally believed that what could go wrong?
It's never going to stop.
How could anything other than this continue to happen?
That's right.
Right. And I hurt some of them's feelings.
You did. I remember you sharing those stories with me.
I said, I'm telling you guys that there ain't nothing in multifamily that is headed for a continual increase.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. Like, I had some strained friendships over this. And I thought I was just telling the truth that they needed to know.
Right.
So I was saying, like you tell the child, don't touch the stove. I said, guys, I'm telling you, you need to listen up. Well, Joe, this was John Burns' report that came out, published in November. Yeah. And this is the decline in real estate values per asset class. And guess what, Joe? In the last 12 months, multifamily has declined in value 17%.
It's a big drop, Eddie.
So the old man apparently ain't crazy.
Well, that's why we call you our chief visionary officer as well.
Well, the thing is, we have an advantage that we've been in the industry a long time, and we've got a lot of deep, level operators, underwriters, significant decision makers. We like to say we've got friends that make $1 billion investments decisions. And so for us, like, knowing multifamily was going to go down wasn't a factor. Now, what a lot of people think is now, Joe, that's over. Right? There's a significant oversupply headed to the market.
Well, there is.
And they're already seeing a decline in occupancy. They're already seeing it. Add another 1 million units to that, and add the rate resets of literally about 30% of the market. Who's going to make the loan, Joe? Are the banks that made over 70% of these loans, are they just going to continue to make those loans?
Yeah. So, Eddie, how does that play into what we're doing then? How does that play in? Saying it's down, but then how do we capitalize?
This is where money pushes to. Money pushes to the next opportunity.
That's it.
And so when this scenario, which the biggest competitor in the discount note buying business, quite honestly, has been people investing in multifamily. That's where the money's flowed. Now all of a sudden people are like, whoa. And now all of a sudden, so they're now pushing to the industry. So if you're looking at doing this strategy and some passive investor strategies, which we teach really well, it starts showing you the trend. And Joe, they show up in our doorstep at Note School on a regular basis, right?
They did.
They were buying rentals. They were investing in multifamily. Now they've pulled the calculator out and they said the math don't work. They're saying I can double my income with notes for the dollars invested versus what I'm getting in these other asset classes.
That's right.
And by the way, in multifamily, you're not looking at a flat market. No. Now, once again, I've hurt somebody's feelings on a regular basis because I just show them data.
That's it.
I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm saying to you, this is the weather forecast.
This is what you should look at.
All right. And we call this ball pretty clearly. And I called it amongst a lot of industry friends. And I had a lot of them that kind of like didn't want to go to dinner with me because Eddie's being negative. So call it what it is. I'm just being negative.
Debbie Downer, Eddie Downer. But, every dog has his day.
I know a couple of industry buddies that said office is the time to jump in right now. They literally were telling me that in the last 12 months. I'm not making that up.
Right.
I know some industry people that they're saying office is now's the time to jump in. I'm like, are you what? Look, not every asset is bad, but I'm telling you that if you're buying multifamily today or any of these asset classes and you think it's done depreciating, there's no data that would say that.
Yeah.
But people love to believe, Joe, that trees are going to grow to the sky.
That's it. That's
right?
it.
All right. John Burns provided this other chart for us. I want to give credit to him, by the way. And so
Smart
he
guy.
also provided this chart. And this was the Optimism chart, Joe. So what are people optimistic about? Well, they're slightly optimistic about multifamily.
Right.
They feel like industrial is going to come back.
Yeah.
Right? Retail has done better than people thought.
It really has.
People had already sent the flowers to the funeral home for retail.
Right.
Right. There is no optimism in office whatsoever. Like the people that say that now's the time to do office, that's a very limited amount of people. Right.
Yeah.
I believe that the multifamily is people that are looking at what historically has happened and saying, well, it was so good, how could it be bad? I'm not an industrial guy. I'm very good friends with some people that deploy billions of dollars in the industrial space. I would say that the heavy money is not as optimistic as we are.
Yeah.
Retail, I think, is what people were just very pessimistic about it. And I think it's, the stores are full. I've been shopping with my wife and, I think retail's not, people still like to get out and shop. They actually like to touch things.
They do. Absolutely.
Right? And we just thought the younger generation was going to buy everything online and do nothing there. And I'm just saying to you, I look around the stores and I see a lot of young people.
Yep.
Maybe this old guy's going to learn something here, right?
That's it.
So, Joe, I thought it was very interesting. Rents in apartments are just call them flat.
Mm-hmm. And that correlates with what we were looking at a few minutes ago when we looked at November. So the rents had started to head down, right?
Yep.
And now we can see where they're still that trend. Yep.
So they were a year ago, they were at 11% annual growth. So a year ago, rents were really going up. Rents have not gone up at the rate that prices have gone up. That's why the math on investment property doesn't work.
That's right.
So Joe, just say if rents have risen like this and values have risen like this, the pace of value increases and rate increases have not matched rent increases. And that's why the math doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, they are saying, Eddie, I thought you said, man, that, like we had, a million properties under, this only says 460,000. No, that says completed this year.
Completed, right. That the other million, the 986,000 are starts that are in the process of being built.
They're in the cooker. They're in the oven. All right. Let's talk about non-performing. The new conversation for the small note investor are HECMs.
Yes.
Right? And basically, guys, that's a reverse mortgage.
Yep.
The reason that's become a conversation is because they went almost 2 years, and even though mother and dad had died, they could not fix the loan.
Right.
These home equity conversion mortgages, HECMs, they call them.
That's right.
There's a big pin-up inventory.
And Eddie, so the average value of a property that goes into that process, into the home equity conversion mortgage, is about $490,000. And then we've got the average age of that borrower is 74 years old. So you're looking and you've retired maybe at 65 or 66 or whatever it is. And now you realize, prices, everything's gone up. Now you tap into that equity. And 3 years ago, you could borrow immediately up to 60% of your equity. Today, that has dropped down to about 47% of the equity that you can borrow against.
Yeah, I'm going to erase that because I don't want that to be misread as 97%.
And then, the crazy thing is that FHA insures almost all the home equity loans.
FHA is 90% of the HECM market.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of pin-up inventory of these mortgage banks that have these loans.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, the FHA is apparently not going to pay the claim, so they're now trying to liquidate those. Yeah. This is what I would say for us. This is the new horizon.
It is.
We're paying the closest attention to this because these mortgage banks had the most loans in foreclosure.
Yes.
That are not waiting on the president to get elected and not waiting on this or that. Like they have been, mom and dad have already passed away, right? You're not foreclosing on some elderly couple. They've already passed away. They're gone, right? Gone. And so this is a big market condition. Joe, let's talk about this chart for a moment.
Yeah. So our big opportunity is not this dark blue at the bottom of that or that tiny sliver of red at the top. It's that light blue there in the middle. And what that really means, Eddie, is that the claim one there, the dark blue, is the homeowner that doesn't occupy the property any longer. Either they've moved into a nursing home or they've passed.
Right. They're not occupied. So what is the light blue?
So the light blue, that's the dollar volume resulting from when an assignment of mortgage, once they've drawn 98% of the value out of the property. So it goes up and they keep, because they're getting a check every month, right? And so when they're getting a check every month, that goes up. And so once that borrowing, so to speak, reaches 98%, FHA flips that over to HUD and says, we're done. And then basically then HUD disposes of those. And that's where the liquidation and that's where that opportunity is.
Yeah. So what we're saying to you guys, in the middle of that blue, HUD is not going to go through with all of these assets.
They're not.
Right? Because there's something that went wrong. There's something that happened that the servicer didn't do correctly, or possibly the bond issuer didn't do correctly.
Right.
Probably the servicer in most cases. And those assets, when they can see that HUD isn't going to pay the claim, then they accelerate and they move those forward. And those are the loans that we see in the marketplace. This is a lot of people. This will be a blind spot. They won't see it. This is a big market condition.
That's right. And that red, tiny sliver of red, that's just the supplemental claims. And those are, they were claims for things that weren't included or eligible, which were property preservations and so on. And Eddie, we had one of our case studies that we actually had Keith Pionk on a couple of weeks ago. And that resulted in, it was a result from one of these HECM loans.
This is going to be the conversation of the next year.
Yeah.
By the way, Joe, remember all of these assets right here. There was a moratorium during a lot of this period of time where you could not foreclose.
Yeah, and Eddie, there was when we had a panel on this with a lot of smart people on that at Note Expo. And the number that was thrown around was there's about 500,000 of these loans that over the last 2 to 3 years, that's where they're going to end up as the NPL space, because again, they just fell into a disrepair because either again the property owner was moved into a nursing home or they passed.
And here's the thing, guys. Not all of these loans are going to end up in the secondary market.
That's right.
But there is a piece of these loans, call it between 10 and 20%, that are going to likely end up in the private sector.
Yep.
Right? And that's because HUD says there's a percentage of these loans that we're not going to pay a claim on. That's what's causing this opportunity. All right, Joe, let's talk about another loan trade out there.
Yeah.
because this is showing the continual trend of now these loans are coming out of the marketplace.
Yes.
They've been sort of stuck. These non-performing loans, they were kind of been stuck and they weren't trading. And now all of a sudden we're seeing a pretty good path to these loans.
Yeah, so that was just, 1,555 loans. And we go, that's a lot of loans. But really, Eddie, that's a drop in the bucket based on what we'll see here in just a second.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Let's
look at this. So, Joe, explain us the relationship between Black Knight and ICE.
Okay, so ICE actually purchased Black Knight, so now they are fully owned by ICE, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for there, but those numbers there, and this was the latest report. This was the November 23, but this is the latest data, and that's the the end of September.
All right, so we remind you guys that these reports frequently are 60 days behind.
Right.
We're looking at a trend here, Joe, and I just want to highlight this latest information. Joe, this category on the far right, is average days delinquent in foreclosure. That FC, you'll see me use that too. FC meaning foreclosure.
Right.
1,014 days delinquent.
Yeah.
The loans that are in foreclosure, right? And so this is really, really a big deal because that's basically almost 3 years delinquent. That is exactly what we see. Non-current loans, 1,962,924. By the way, that's the highest it's been since we've been tracking it, since May.
Yep.
And it's trending up. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the marketplace. So people say, well, I hear you talking about seller financing a lot. I hear you talking about note buying and performing notes. What about this non-performing? So we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about HECMs and traditional non-performing loans in the resi market. Joe, when you have a flat real estate market, flat or even slightly going up, it's a lot easier to safely know what to bid on loans.
That's it.
Normally, when there's a big supply of non-performing notes, you also have a housing market that's dropping like a rock.
That's right.
And you got to go read the fate of not what the market is today, but how bad it's going to be a year and a half from now when you get the house back.
That's right.
Right. Well, when the market is when you have a stable real estate market and a good supply of non-performing notes, it's a lot more comfortable to sleep at night when you're investing in this asset class.
That's right. And Eddie, let's clear something up here. The 1,014 days, that's not how long it's going to take you to foreclose.
These are days delinquent.
That's delinquent. That's right. And we went in, from the March of 2020, and then the foreclosure moratorium was put in place, and that didn't stop until January of 2022. So it's just piled up, Eddie.
Look, remember when I used this chart and I said you couldn't foreclose here?
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's what caused this.
That's it.
Right? It's that we had this crazy moratorium that said you couldn't foreclose, even though people had died and even though people had moved out of the house and things that why can't you foreclose on that house? Because these moratoriums didn't make provisions like that. I don't think it was good for the mortgage lending industry, but it's going to be great for us.
And then the court systems, Eddie, were just jammed because of and you just couldn't get to them fast enough. So it was just all piled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Joe, I'm going to say that we've knocked it out of the park here on really what we would call, like what we're kind of seeing in the marketplace, right? We are at a market condition that I think sets the pace for where we are this year. We have more. I can tell you that in our shop, we have more loans to close in the next 30 days than any month this year, and I'm talking about probably double. Yeah, we have double the inventory of notes to buy in the next 30 days. It's already under contract. Are already in inventory. Now we're pushing them out to these students that become investors with it through us. And that's just kind of what the pattern is we're seeing in the market. We're seeing more of a pattern of people coming to Note School saying, I want to figure this out. Yeah. And I guess we're just saying to you guys is come on in. The water's fine. We are fired up about our position in the market.
We are. And we had an amazing group of people at Note Expo this year, fired up, ready to go. We're doing our first live 3-day class here next week, Eddie, and we haven't done one of those for 4 years. So we're looking forward to that in Dallas. And our January, February classes are already filling up as well. So, if somebody says, well, how do I go to a 3-day class? First step is just to come, Eddie, to one of our master classes. noteschool.com/TV. Want to attend a master class in the art or in the line there, and hey, we'd love to have you. Eddie's made it so that it's really affordable, huh, Eddie?
Well, we do sell the class. We do run some specials. We do run some specials, and we're running a special right now. I wouldn't say this is always going to be the case. This 2-hour master class,
yes,
is where we spend about half the time answering your questions. Mm-hmm. So it's not just us being a talking head. We get to hear back from you and communicate with you and answer what you want answered about the business. Like, why does this matter to me? And so it's really fun. It's a couple of hours, and we are, for a limited time, if you register for it, we'll comp you. We'll pay your tuition, so to speak.
Right.
And if that's of a fit for you, then we'd love it. Everything I think we're saying about the business, people say, why do you guys gather so much data? If you don't have data, you don't know where you're going.
We're sunk.
You don't have a roadmap.
That's it.
So, Joe, thank you. Great job in gathering all this. A lot of work. You guys,
a lot of fun.
You guys have a great week, and we will see you next week here on Note School TV.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.